All right, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, we're going to talk about Gervonta Davis and Keith Thurman and the fact that that fight is almost for sure dead in the water, according to Stephen Espinosa of Showtime. Let's talk and this is the good news, that Gervonta Davis is looking to fight at 135 pounds. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to talk about Keith Thurman and Gervonta Davis and Stephen Espinosa, the president of Showtime Sports. But before I get into that, make sure if you're not already subscribed to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video. It goes a long way towards helping grow the channel. So there's been a lot of talk about Gervonta Davis fighting Keith Thurman and whether or not that fight is going to take place. You had people like Leonard Ellerbe saying, "Hey, yeah, we would make that fight in a minute," you know, and that Keith Thurman would not, Gervonta Davis would knock out Keith Thurman. You have Keith Thurman himself saying, "Hey, you know, where's the contract? Send the contract, and we'll see if the contract can happen." So a lot of back and forth about people wondering whether that fight is real or not. But now, and also at the same time, wondering what Gervonta, if it's not real, what Gervonta Davis is actually going to be doing moving forward. So listening to Stephen Espinosa, who was interviewed by ES News, we now kind of know what the deal is, at least from the Showtime perspective, which matters because Showtime is the one that is paying the bills, and and Stephen Espinosa is intimately involved in the negotiations of the fights that take place on that network, and that, you know, that is the network that Gervonta Davis fights on. And Stephen Espinosa said, "No, this is pretty much just good for fantasy talk. That is not a fight that they're seriously thinking about making, and that they're thinking and talking about what fights are going to happen at 135. And what I really liked about it is that he said that Gervonta Davis is not going to be fighting. He thinks that the 140 was just a one-time thing, that he doesn't think he's going to be going up to 147, that Gervonta Davis is going to be focused on 135, maybe 130. He said 135, but maybe 130. I think 130 is less of a chance of him being focused on 130 because pretty much, you know, he has a hard time making that 130-pound weight class. But at lightweight, that is pretty much exactly where he is. So to have him focus on that is much better. Now, as far as about Keith Thurman and why not Keith Thurman, the answer to that is just that Keith Thurman is really just too big for Gervonta Davis, right? And that Keith Thurman is, not only is he a welterweight, but he's a bigger welterweight, a stronger welterweight. And Gervonta Davis said this when Gervonta Davis said, oh man, you guys think that I'm Superman. But still, you know, the conversations flew about it. But the most important thing that I got out of the conversation is that he wants to be at 135. Now, there is, according to Stephen Espinosa, roadblocks to making really good fights at 130 pounds, specifically that the weight class is really splintered, and so therefore, you know, it's tough to make fights in between networks, which I definitely believe is one of the biggest problems in boxing, and why I really wish that everybody was under one roof, you know, and that we could get to some point in boxing where there was, like, if not a complete monopoly in boxing, but something that looked closer to one than what we have right now. Because at lightweight, you know, you want to see Gervonta Davis in the best fights, which are obviously Teofimo Lopez, Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, right? But then you look at where these guys are fighting. You have Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia, who are pretty much fighting on DAZN. You have Teofimo Lopez, who's fighting on ESPN, and you have Gervonta Davis. And I guess you might as well go ahead and throw him in there, Rolly Romero, who are fighting with the PBC, so who can fight between Fox and Showtime, and it prevents these fights from taking place. But one of the things that have happened in boxing, I think, at least with the WBA, and I hope it continues on beyond the WBA, is that how the WBA is shrinking their belts. I think they got rid of 31 already, and there's like another 24 belts that they're considering getting rid of. When you get rid of that many belts, there's that many fewer championships. So in order to fight for less championships, I'm hoping that what it does is it pushes the networks to fight, to work together to make these fights. Now, Gervonta Davis, his own personal wishes for the fights were that he said he wants to get Ryan Garcia first, Teofimo Lopez, then Devin Haney in that order. And I think that that would be something that would be, I would not mind that at all. Now, as far as Ryan Garcia, I'm not really sure where Ryan Garcia is in his life as far as boxing, period, because he, said he took like a mental health break from the sport. And so he may or may not be ready. But anyway, that him being with Golden Boy, that seems like it's, at least a couple years off. I know that they had conversations about making it before. And so, but I think you might have to be in a situation where one of those guys is ordered to fight the other before that fight actually could pop off. You got the Teofimo Lopez fight, which is really the biggest fight of them. And I think that fight is something that's probably going to get held up because both of those guys are are climbing to the upper echelon of the sport. And so they're Mayweather Promotions and Top Rank may not want to see those guys match up too quickly. But if they don't do it too quickly, then Teofimo Lopez more than likely is going to grow out of that weight class, because Teofimo Lopez doesn't have the same problems that Gervonta Davis has, in that he's big, he's a naturally bigger guy and should be able to get up to 140 and 147 pounds and compete up there just because of the mass that he has on it. So, in the lightweight division, there's so much, it's almost like the same as the welterweight division, where you have so many, really good fighters at the top of it, but everything is just so all over the place that it's hard to envision a way that all of these guys can fight, which is one of the downsides of boxing right now, which is caused by the promoters, caused by the networks primarily, and at this point in time, according to Stephen Espinosa, or maybe Stephen Espinosa is actually talking about the promotional companies and whether the promotional companies are willing to work with each other. But all in all, I'm glad that Stephen Espinosa really put to rest the notion of a Gervonta Davis Keith Thurman fight, because that just seemed so unrealistic. And even if it was something that they were considering, something that really doesn't profit boxing very much, which is just to keep climbing up and down these weight classes, but to never really show that you're the best person in a particular weight class. And that's something that Gervonta Davis to date has not done. I believe that he is the best 130 pounder, but there's still the Oscar Valdez that he can fight, the Shakur Stevens that he could fight, depending on who wins between Shakur Stevenson and Jamil Herring. Those are still fights that he could be fighting. And, and those things, I think those fights are even more doable than the ones at 135. But anyway, that's my take on the scenario. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.